If you are someone who has betrayed your partner, you need to understand these two things that your partner is going through. Leslie Wells, Connection Coach. I help individuals heal, thrive, improve, repair, and connect more deeply in their romantic relationships by looking at things through an attachment lens. Betrayal is very much tied up in attachment, and so a lot of times I work with clients in the arena of betrayal. So there's two things that you need to understand that are going to happen for your partner if you are going to repair the relationship and you're going to show up better for them. You need to understand their experience, and you need to have gentleness and patience and understand that the reason that you may feel like there are 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, or 2 steps forward and 15 steps back, is because these things are happening for your partner. The first thing is, whenever someone is betrayed, whenever there is cheating, infidelity, adultery, whenever that happens, there is something that happens in the brain of a person that experiences this type of trauma, and that is called amygdala hijack. And essentially the amygdala, which is responsible for your emotional processing and is the center that sort of is your threat detection center for safety in your brain, that is hijacked, and your prefrontal cortex, which is your rational thinking part of your brain, okay, the part that makes the executive functioning, that makes good rational decisions, that part is overpowered by the amygdala, who is then running the show and is in the driver's seat. The prefrontal cortex essentially goes offline, and the amygdala is just the one that is taking over. And so it's essentially like a fire alarm going off in the brain like crazy. And its job is to constantly, now that there is a perceived, real threat, but it will do it with a perceived threat. Now that there is a threat, the amygdala is going to constantly be scanning for danger. So if you have a partner who is constantly still trying to, like, you feel like you've repaired, you're in a different place, you're doing all the things right, but they are still like not feeling safe and looking for danger per se, that is because the amygdala is in hyperdrive. So the amygdala stays in this heightened sense of danger when this happens for quite some time. So the amygdala can stay in this state for about 3 to 6 months. So you may find that after about 6 months, some of this starts to kind of calm down for your partner. And that's because the amygdala is sort of calming down a little bit if you are showing up safely. If you are not showing up safely and doing your repair work, it is going to stay hijacked. So if you're not doing things to improve and repair the relationship, and I give very specific things and tools to my coaching clients, if you're not doing those things, your partner's probably going to stay that way. If you are doing those things, it can still take 2 to 5 years for full recovery, because not just the amygdala, but there are other parts of the brain like the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex that actually have to go structurally back to normal functioning. And that takes a very long time. That full recovery really takes a long time. And so before you think about betraying your partner, or before you get frustrated that they're not getting better faster and that you're having to keep revisiting their feelings of lack of safety, just understand they have parts of their brain that will not function properly and get full recovery for potentially up to 5 years. So when you go to get frustrated and struggle with patience, go look in the mirror and remind yourself of that. And there are things that will impact the amount of time that it takes, such as the duration of the affair that you had, the amount of times. If this is a first instance versus this is a pattern of behavior for you, it's going to take longer for them to repair and rebuild safety, if it's more than one instance. The second thing you're going to see your partner experience that you need to understand is that they are going to have a loss of their own identity. So something actually happens whenever we betray a partner. And what happens is something called reality fragmentation, where everything that they knew to be true is gone, and essentially their reality collapses. And I have another TikTok on this, or another video, which would be great for you to go back and look at if you want to understand this better for your partner. It will help you understand some of their experience. And if you understand their experience better, you can show up with more validation and empathy, and you can help with that repair process. So here's the thing about our identity. We have 2 key attachment individuals or people in our life that we strongly attach to. That starts with our caregivers in childhood, and then the next is our romantic partners. If you've been married a long time, that second person is your spouse. Okay, so those are the most important relationships. Our romantic one takes over and is our longer one than our parents, but both of those are key for our attachment. And so our relationships with our caregivers give us messages about love, trusting people, safety, all of these things that we use as a blueprint that we then carry forward, and that determines how we show up and respond to love, security, safety, and people and relationships, okay? So that is the premise of attachment. Our identity is very much caught up in that, because the way that people treat us, the way that we experience relationships and love and security and safety helps shape a large portion of our identity. So since our identity is partly molded by our intense, committed relationships with our key attachment people in our lives, whenever cheating happens, foundational parts of our identity are shattered. And the thing that you need to understand is that as your person's partner or spouse or whatever, you have an enormous amount of power to influence and impact them because of the nature of your relationship and because their identity is partly caught up in you. No one other than our parents and our romantic partners has that same type and same level of influence over us. So if you think of a narcissist, this is exactly what they do to a person. They actually feed them lies. There's manipulation, there's deceit, there's gaslighting. These are all things that happen during an affair. One person is experiencing the relationship one way. In reality, their partner is lying, deceiving, gaslighting, having a whole different experience that they are completely unaware of, okay? So their reality is not real. And that's called a reality consensus, when two different people have a different reality in their relationship. In this case, one person has all the information and another is missing a large portion of the information. So a narcissist essentially does that. They use this false reality and they create a false reality to have control and maintain control over their partner. And in an affair, it's kind of the same thing. It's not intentional to control the partner, but the things that are being done are controlling the narrative that does not really exist. And so when the person who is betrayed finds this out, their whole reality is confused. Their past is no longer their past. And I allude to this in my reality fragmentation TikTok, but essentially the past that they believed is not true and is not real. They're going to always look back at pictures and be like, was this person betraying me in this time? Were they thinking about it? Were they unhappy? Were they already sort of planning it in their head or thinking about it? Had they already left the relationship? And it's the same for the future. If you're repairing, the person who betrayed is probably like, okay, we're repairing. Things are feeling good. We're moving forward. They're staying with me. But for the person who was betrayed, there's constantly not the same reality. Is this person going to do this again? Am I ever really going to have a marriage that lasts? Is this person, going to betray me again and then leave my children? Like, they don't have the same sense of a future that the person who betrayed and has a partner who stays necessarily has. Even with a ton of repair work, and a lot of times marriages are way better off than they ever were once there's been an affair and they're actually working through it and rebuilding that foundation from the ground up. Even in that case, there's going to be subconscious thoughts that come up that make them question their reality and make them question their future and the past. So it's a big piece of what I have to help people deal with whenever they were the person who was betrayed. So if you are the betrayer, understand what is happening for your partner. And when you are tempted to be frustrated or feel defeat or not understand why it doesn't seem to be the amount of safety you're trying to rebuild doesn't seem to be taking, or you keep going backwards, this is why. There's things that have literally structurally changed in the brain and are not working properly, and you've also shattered their entire reality. In addition to that, by shattering their reality, you've also taken their sense of self. So many people that come to me that have been betrayed say over and over again, I don't know who I am anymore. I have no idea who I am. And that is something that they truly experience as a result of betrayal. If you and your partner are going through this and you need help, and you definitely need help to get through this properly, I love working with coaching clients that are going through this and love seeing them repair properly and getting the help that they need, and also identifying all of the attachment issues that led to this and are going to be probably exacerbated by a betrayal. So understand this for your partner. If you want to show up well, it helps to understand their experience so that you can have some empathy and compassion for it. And take accountability for the full enormity of the damage that you have caused. It's important to give yourself grace. It's important to forgive yourself, and important not to stay in a place of shame. But if you understand your partner's experience, then you can really show it better for them and heal much better and move through it a lot quicker.